My best friend ghosted me for 5 years, and I finally realized the truth behind it. For most of my life, I never questioned what it meant to have a best friend. I had one. She and I were inseparable for 15 years, closer than sisters, steady through every move, every heartbreak, every change. She was one of the most emotionally aware and loyal people I had ever known. I trusted her with everything. Our bond felt unbreakable. When I moved far away from my education, she stayed home and started her family. She had 2 babies back to back, and although our lives were suddenly very different, I never imagined that the distance between us would turn into something more than miles. I always believed we would stay connected no matter what. That was the nature of our friendship, or so I thought. One day, during one of our rare conversations, she told me that she didn't have time to maintain a long-distance friendship. I remember the way she said it, gentle, almost apologetic, and how quickly I reassured her. I told her I understood. Her kids and her mental well-being obviously came first. I figured it was temporary. I believed that once life slowed down, we would pick up exactly where we left off. The idea of going completely no contact with her honestly never crossed my mind. I don't think it crossed hers at that moment either. It felt more like she was overwhelmed and trying her best to communicate that, so I stepped back. I respected her boundaries before she even stated them clearly. I invested in other friendships and focused on school, but I also kept a small door open. I would call now and then, mostly to check in and remind her I was still there. I texted on her birthday, on her kids' birthdays, and on Christmas. Sometimes she replied a few months later. Other times she didn't. Slowly, those long pauses turned into silence. What made it stranger was seeing her life online. Not in a jealous way, but more in a confused way. She seemed busy, yes, but she still had time to talk to distant relatives and old friends. People would mention chatting with her on the phone or visiting. It didn't match what she had told me. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, but the feeling that something else was going on grew stronger. After about 1.5 years of this slow drift, I couldn't take the uncertainty anymore. I sent her a kind, open message saying that if I had done anything to hurt her, I wanted to make it right. I told her I cared about her, and I didn't want unresolved tension hanging over us. I even said that if she needed space, I respected that. I just wanted clarity. She read the message and didn't reply. That silence was louder than any words she could have typed. I took it as the answer she didn't want to give out loud. It was painful, but I forced myself to step all the way back. I told myself I had to stop reaching out because each unanswered message chipped away at my self-esteem. The more I tried, the more I felt like I was embarrassing myself, chasing something that clearly wasn't there anymore. The loss hit harder than I expected. I didn't just miss her. I mourned her, like losing a part of my history. I went into a depression, one that made me pull away from my other friends. I became more isolated, and honestly, I felt ashamed. I thought I must have done something awful without realizing it. I blamed myself because the alternative, that someone I loved like a sister simply walked away without explanation, hurt too much to accept. 5 years passed. 5 quiet, confusing, heavy years where I tried to untangle the knots in my heart and move forward. Then a few months ago, I heard that her father had passed away unexpectedly. My heart broke for her. Despite all the hurt, my first instinct was compassion. I reached out, offering my condolences. We ended up talking for a while. For the first time in years, I heard her voice. It was familiar and distant at the same time. During that conversation, she apologized. She said she had never meant to let it go on this long. Something about that phrase stuck with me, because it had gone on long. Years long, long enough for me to rebuild parts of myself around the absence. I apologized too, even though I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. Reflex, I guess, old habits. I asked gently if I had done something that hurt her. She got quiet, too quiet, and said we could talk about it later. We talked about other things for a bit, but after I hung up, something unexpected happened. I got angry, not just irritated, deeply, truly angry. 5 years of confusion and self-blame boiled up all at once. I let the feelings sit for a few days, then I texted again to offer support. Nothing. Weeks later, I tried a very neutral message saying that I was open to talking or leaving things be. This time, she said she wanted to chat. But since then, we've been trying to schedule a time, and it's been months. That alone feels like an answer. Now she wants to talk next week, and my feelings are all over the place. Part of me wants to cancel because the thought of reopening this wound terrifies me. That part of me feels like running, shutting the door, hiding from the pain. Another part of me wants to make everything okay and pretend none of this ever happened. That's the part of me that has always tried too hard, apologized too fast, carried too much of the emotional weight. But the rest of me, the part that has lived with this heartbreak for half a decade, just wants to protect myself. My nervous system wants to bolt. My heart wants clarity. My mind wants safety, and I'm standing in the middle, unsure which direction to choose. I have put her on a pedestal for so long. Everyone loved her. Everyone admired her. She was charismatic and kind and always seemed to have the right words. Meanwhile, I was the quirky one, the one who sometimes felt too much or said too little, or got overwhelmed by things other people brushed off. For years, I convinced myself that if something went wrong, it must have been my fault. That belief still lingers, even though I know now that friendships aren't supposed to feel like guessing games. The truth is, what she did hurt me deeply. Whether she meant to or not, leaving someone who cared about you without any explanation for years is painful. And even though I've tried to be kind to myself, the old stories in my head still whisper that if I had been something more fun, more stable, more lovable, maybe she wouldn't have left. I don't know how to approach this conversation. Part of me wants to meet her and hear her out, because what if this is the last chance? What if the conversation finally gives me closure? But part of me knows that I'm still angry and sad, and I'm scared that hearing her explanation won't heal me. It might just reopen every old wound I worked so hard to close. I'm not sure if I should tell her how hurt I am before she shares her side or after, or at all. I don't know how much space to give her feelings when mine have been buried for years. I don't know how to hold both our truths without breaking again. I'm not even sure I want to try. So now I'm stuck wondering, is it worth talking to someone who ghosted me for 5 years, even if only to hear why? Because the why feels big, but the what feels even bigger, and I don't know if I'm strong enough to revisit it. Update: reading people's responses to my original post hit me harder than I expected. I thought I had fully processed those years of silence, but seeing my experience reflected back to me by strangers gave me a kind of reality check that I didn't know I needed. Before I shared my story, a small part of me still held onto the hope that maybe, just maybe, she and I could find our way back to being best friends again. That tiny spark of hope had survived 5 years of distance, confusion, and unanswered messages. But after writing everything out and hearing honest feedback, something shifted. I realized that even if she and I talked, even if she explained everything perfectly, going back to how things were was impossible, and more importantly, unwise. Whatever her reasons were, I deserved better than to be left with silence for years. I am a compassionate person. I listen. I apologize when I'm wrong. I show up for the people I love. And I know how simple it is to send a short message saying, "I'm struggling right now. Please don't take it personally." That would have been enough. It would have saved me so much confusion and hurt. But instead, she said nothing. For years, the weight of those missing words shaped so much of my life. I carried that silence like an unanswered question, and I tried to be gentle with myself, but the truth was, it left a mark. And here's something I had to admit to myself. I wasn't ready to forgive that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I also knew that if we talked, I might fall into old patterns. I might rush to fix everything, apologize too quickly, forget my own pain to make room for hers. Like many women, and many people who struggle with boundaries, I sometimes say sorry out of habit, even when I haven't done anything wrong. I could see myself sitting across from her, hearing her explanation and instinctively softening, smoothing things over, taking responsibility that wasn't mine. And the thought of doing that made me feel like I was letting myself down. I wanted to break that cycle, not reinforce it. That's when I made my decision. I messaged her and told her the truth, that not knowing why she cut off contact had been incredibly painful, that her silence deeply hurt me, and that while my first instinct after her father's passing had been to support her, I wasn't ready to reopen contact again. I kept it honest and compassionate. I didn't blame her. I didn't attack her. I simply stated how I felt and acknowledged the hurt that I could no longer ignore or minimize. After sending the message, I felt a rush of anxiety, wondering if I was overreacting, wondering what she would think. But beneath that, something steadier bloomed. Relief. A quiet sense of alignment with myself. For the first time in a long time, my boundaries felt real. Some people might groan at my choice. I know many readers wanted answers. The big why. At first, I wanted that too. But this situation isn't new for me. I've been sitting with this loss for half a decade. To me, the reason behind her silence is less important than the impact it had. The what mattered more than the why. And the truth is, what happened was extremely painful and not something I'm eager to repeat. Sharing this experience online also helped me see something else. Without realizing it, I had started chasing her again. Just like before. When we reconnected and she said we'd talk, I initiated messages. I waited for replies that didn't come. I let myself hope in that uncertain, anxious way I used to. And each time she went quiet, I felt that same old heaviness creeping in. It was like I was reliving a version of the past all over again. That wasn't fair to me. Chasing unavailable people used to be one of my patterns, especially in friendships. Her disappearance 5 years ago had forced me to break that habit, but recently I caught myself slipping. The moment I noticed it, I felt frustrated with myself, disappointed, tired. But instead of spiraling, I took it as a sign, a reminder that I've grown, a reminder that I'm allowed to protect the peace I've worked hard to build. I've spent the last few years improving my mental health, working through the depression and self-blame that her silence had sparked. I've focused on healing and finding joy again, investing in people who genuinely show up for me. The idea of risking all that progress to force a conversation that neither of us seemed genuinely ready for didn't feel wise or healthy. So now what? Now I keep doing the work in therapy. I keep processing the anger, the grief, and the part of me that still wishes things were different. I keep understanding myself better, especially the parts that want to fix everything and earn everyone's approval, even at my own expense. I'm not ruling out reconnecting forever. Maybe someday, with enough distance and healing, I'll feel ready to have that conversation. Maybe she will too. If that happens, I'll pay attention not just to her words, but to her actions. I'll consider whether the effort is mutual. I'll stay grounded in the truth that healthy relationships are built on mutual care, not one-sided pursuit. But one promise I've made to myself, one I won't break, is this: I will not chase someone who ghosted me just to learn why. The why is simply not worth the emotional toll. The is what shaped me, hurt me, and ultimately pushed me to grow. Impact over intent always. If our paths cross again someday and the timing is right, I'll share that here. But for now, I'm focusing on the life I've built without her, a life that finally feels stable. And to anyone facing something similar, I'll share the reminder that helped me reach clarity. If it's not an enthusiastic yes, it's a no. That applies to friendships, relationships, reconnection, closure, everything. And it also applies to the way our bodies react. My whole body had been saying no for a long time. I'm glad I finally heard it.